What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's reaction video is going to be the attack on Pearl Harbor 1941. Obviously, this event was during World War II, and personally, I don't know too much about it. When I say I don't know too much about it, I kind of get the whole premise of it. It was a bombing on the Pearl Harbor naval base in the US, which I want to say was in Hawaii. That kind of rings a bell in my head. We'll find out in this. In World War II. I don't know what sprung it apart. Obviously, a world war was going on, so maybe that was the reason. It doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. I don't know how many people potentially was lost. Hopefully not many. But it is a massive point in history, which he spoke about quite a lot. And it's come up in so many conversations in the past when you're talking about history, when you're talking about World War II. And I've kind of got the premise of it, like the simple premise of it, like I just said there, but I've never really know the full details of it. So today we're going to be checking it out, which is going to be an emotional one potentially as well. And if you're affected by this, I understand if you want to click off it, but it's a very long time ago, so hopefully you won't be affected by it. And it's a very good learning curve for you and me to learn a bit of history if you don't know much about it. It's an awesome opportunity, this video, so let's get straight into it, guys. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and yeah, let's learn together what the attack of Pearl Harbor was all about. And again, like I said, I don't know too much about it, but I believe it is very significant. It's got to be. It's spoke about a lot. It's a very significant thing about the war, which I want to learn more about. So let's get straight into it, guys.
About the 27-yard line. Cruiser Kennard made the tackle. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this important bulletin from the United Press. Flash, Washington. The White House announces Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Stay tuned to WOR for further development.
1941, Japan situation. America and other nations have imposed an oil embargo on Japan, which means Japan cannot continue their conquests. No problem. Japan will just get the oil it needs from the Dutch Indies. Their underfunded and undergunned fleet will pose no threat to the Imperial Japanese Navy.
First thing, with 30 seconds in, I won't pause too much because it's a 17-minute video. But it's all about oil already. Oil, first thing we're talking about. So there's a bit of tension there already. The US is putting some restrictions on there. So it's starting to build up. We're only 30 seconds in, but you can kind of see the tension building already.
And if their ally, Great Britain, joins the conflict, well, Japan will fight them too. Both nations are too occupied with the European war anyways. So, through their new conquests, Japan's demand for resources shall be met. However, geography has cursed them. Look at what lays beside their vital supply lines. The Philippines, a US territory. Although America is not officially allied with the British and the Dutch, they are on friendly terms. Japan cannot afford the risk of the US entering the war while they are in the midst of their campaign. Their proximity to Japan's supply lines puts into jeopardy everything they are about to fight for. Basically, the Americans would be holding a dagger to Japan's throat the entire time they conduct their campaign.
Okay, that makes
ready
sense.
to commence hostilities at a moment's notice. Thus, they come to the conclusion that they must take out the Americans as well. This calls not only for an invasion of the Philippines, but also a preemptive strike on the powerful American fleet at Pearl Harbor. And so with that, history was set. Japan set its powerful Kido Butai to strike Pearl Harbor on the morning of December 7th. Now, the goal of the raids was as follows. 1. Sink a battleship. This was for propaganda purposes.
Okay.
Japan reasoned that if America saw their beloved battleships, symbols of their naval power, destroyed, their will to wage war against Japan would be shattered as well. 2. Immobilize the fleet for 6 months. The Japanese estimated that they needed 6 months to do all their conquests. Then they would be on the defensive and await the American counterattacks and wear them down, culminating in a decisive naval clash.
I mean, just from the first 2 points there, I know this was a very long time ago and the US military isn't what it is today, but it was still a powerhouse. And you talk about the will. Do you not remember the revolution against the British where they had no right to win that, but their will got them through? Like, if you're going to talk about will, you don't want to try and demoralize the US because they've got plenty of it. So that's never going to work. And I get the 6-month thing, though. That's quite strategic. If you can disable their main threats, potentially. Again, I don't know the whole of the US firepower back then. You can stop them for 6 months with the Philippines and stuff like that. Get all your resources in. I get that part. But the will part, no way, man. They see a thinking chip. They get together. And from my experience of seeing these reaction videos, the US come together and they fight back. Which I'm assuming that is how they got mainly into it. Maybe this event. Potentially. That seems to be the way it's going.
So note, the Japanese knew they could not win a long-term war with America, so Japanese strategy revolved on them waging a short-term war.
Okay.
This was why attacking the fuel tanks or naval facilities at Pearl Harbor was not even considered in the planning phase. It was irrelevant to the 6-month goal. At Pearl Harbor were some 80 ships. There were 8 battleships, 7 of them in battleship role and 1 in dry dock. 8 cruisers were at Pearl Harbor, 4 of which were accessible to torpedoes, and dozens of destroyers and auxiliaries were docked elsewhere. Unfortunately for the Japanese, the 3 American carriers were all at sea and not in port that fateful day. The attack on Pearl Harbor would be carried out by 6 fleet carriers and its strike force of 350 planes.
What?
Their crews had endured 10 months of training for this attack. In addition, 5 midget submarines would be tasked with penetrating the harbor and attacking in conjunction with the main airstrike.
Oh my god,
The attack would be composed of 2 waves. During the first wave, Lieutenant Fuchida commanded a strike against the ships in the harbor. The key to the first wave was the 50 level bombers and 40 torpedo bombers, also known as Kates.
And that's the first wave. Oh, I didn't realize it was such a massive armed attack by Japan. I did not realize that about. Oh my god. And again, this whole, if you're going to pick a fight with someone, why are you picking it with the US? Especially go at this level towards them. I get they've done that description, but surely people have learned. I get that maybe in World War II, like I said before, the military power isn't as much, but you've got to have learned not to mess with them, man.
Their torpedoes have been modified with wooden fins so that they could be effective in the shallow waters of Pearl Harbor. Their priority targets were the battleships and carriers at port. The first wave of 183 aircraft was launched at 6 a.m. The strike force approached Oahu, and soon the formation separated into groups to attack their assigned airfields and targets.
Oh my god, man.
The sky was completely clear of American fighters. The Japanese had achieved complete surprise. The dive bombers beat the torpedo bombers to Pearl Harbor, the first bombs hitting the southern tip of Ford Island minutes before even the first torpedo had been launched. Planes from Hiru and Soryu approached at 7:55. They were disappointed to discover that their targets, the carriers, were not in port that day. Lieutenant Nagai, leader of Soryu's air group, realized there were no potential targets, so he and his wingman pulled off. However, the remaining 6 attacked. They probably mistook the old decommissioned battleship, the USS Utah, as a capital ship, and they fired upon her. 2 torpedoes slammed into her before 8 a.m.
Oh,
The
wow.
rest missed. One missed so badly that the USS Raleigh was hit. The Utah capsized at 8:12. The Raleigh almost suffered a similar fate, but prompt damage control prevented her from capsizing.
Oh, that's awful, man. Again,
Nagai
I feel like we'll find out the numbers, but I really hope not too many people was died during this, because it's awful, man. And the fact that they're kind of like, it's mental to think that they made the mistake of, even when they got there, the main goal they came to attack weren't even there, so they're not even detrimentally attacking like the US facilities pretty much, or the options they have to attack back, and they're still going for it. The first one, quite wise, got out of the way, but the other one's just completely confusing it, and that was a mistake. And then when you've got the aircraft carriers out, you haven't even sunk one of them, so the will and demoralization thing isn't really there. It's just the anger and the fight backs there instead. Oh my
went
god.
around Ford Island and launched against what he believed was a battleship. In reality, it was just a cruiser, the USS Helena. She was double berthed with an old mine layer, the Oglala. Its silhouette probably gave the impression of a battleship.
Oh wow.
His torpedo actually went under Oglala's heel and exploded into Helena's hull, damaging both ships. Nagai's wingman recognized that it was just a cruiser and decided to attack Battleship Row instead. The 8 Hiru planes didn't fare any better. Lieutenant Hirata and his wingman saw that there were no viable targets, so they headed for Battleship Row. However, the remaining 6 aircraft who were lagging behind got to see Nagai's attack on Helena and followed suit. 4 launched torpedoes, but they all missed terribly.
Oh wow.
The last pair aborted their run at the last minute and headed for the battleships. So now we have 4 Hiru and 1 Soryu plane maneuvering for Battleship Row, cutting right across the path of the other 24 torpedo bombers who are just coming in.
By the way, I just want to say, this video is incredible. Like, go and check this channel out. The channel is Montemaya. Please go and check that channel out. We've got to drop him a like and subscribe mid-video, because this edit is insane, and I'm learning so much. Only 5 minutes in, but go. The link will be in the description. Wait to the end of this. Oh my god, this is awesome.
In this photograph, you can see the opening stages of the attack. Both the Utah and Raleigh have been hit, and Utah is listing to port. At this moment, the torpedo runs against the battleships have begun. You can even spot 2 planes finishing their bomb runs.
Oh my god.
Due to the geography of Pearl Harbor, the torpedo bombers really just had one avenue of approach. If they had gone over the naval buildings, the turbulence would have thrown off their accuracy and limited their launch window. Therefore, the overwhelming majority of the Cape bombers flew single file down the southeast lock. The result was that instead of the attack being spread out, it would be disproportionately concentrated on the southern tip of Battleship Row, much to Oklahoma's and West Virginia's despair.
Oh man.
12 Akagi planes approached single file, 1,000 feet apart, starting at 7:57. All of Akagi's 12 planes launched against these 2 battleships, except one, which skillfully maneuvered and struck the California. The 4 Hiryu planes from before joined shortly afterwards and launched against Oklahoma and West Virginia. Contrary to belief, the Japanese were not attacking with impunity. The defenders had taken advantage of the precious minutes warning afforded by the Fort Allen bomb blast, so that when the first torpedo planes of Akagi approached, many anti-aircraft gunners were already prepared. These vulnerable, slow-moving Kates had to make their torpedo runs under fire. 3 miles behind Akagi's strike was Kaga's air group. By now, the anti-aircraft fire was becoming more effective, and again, Oklahoma and West Virginia took the brunt of the attack.
I mean, it'd be suck if you're on one of them two. It's a shame that them two got the brunt of the attack, but I guess it kind of helped potentially save more lives, the fact that it was only targeted on them two instead of spread out and a lot more damage. But again, it just shows, again, in war, just the timing and strategy makes such a big difference. Because it was minutes before, which it wasn't meant to be, which when you talk about minutes, the distance of travel to get there and all the planning what's gone into it, it's so easy to be minutes out, surely. So it's meant over, it's only a few minutes out, and that meant it doesn't go to pot, but there's a lot more resistance because of that timing, which is awesome for the US. They managed to get that resistance done. But it just shows in war that strategy and timing is everything. And if you want to do a surprise attack, you have to be on the money.
In the middle of their launch, that single Soryu plane from earlier swept in and got a hit on the California. However, one of Kaga's plane veered to the right because of this, but was able to hit the Nevada at 8:03. Kaga's air group was the only one to suffer losses. 5 of the last 7 attacking Kates were shot down.
Oh, wow.
In this historic photograph, the torpedo attack is perfectly captured. You can see the torpedo hits on the Oklahoma, West Virginia, and the California. All of them are gushing out oil. In the background, you can see Hickam Field burning, and the Helena can be seen leaning against the Oglala.
Oh,
and
wow,
a Japanese
man.
plane can also be spotted. However, the attack wasn't executed as smoothly as hoped. An attack that should have taken less than 90 seconds stretched out over 11 minutes from first run to last. Some had to abort and redo their runs due to mutual interference, and the heavy anti-aircraft fire threw off the pilot's aim and caused them to over-concentrate on just 2 battleships.
Okay.
21 torpedoes were launched at Oklahoma and West Virginia, over half of the available torpedoes. Oklahoma had 12 torpedoes launched at her. 5 hit her, and she capsized in 15 minutes.
Oh, man.
West Virginia was hit by 7 torpedoes, but prompt counterflooding prevented her from capsizing, and she settled to the bottom. California should not have sunk from 2 torpedoes, but her hatches were open for inspection that morning, which contributed to her sinking. And she was abandoned due to fires, and when she was reboarded, it was too late. Of the 36 torpedoes launched, only 19 achieved hits. That's a 48% hit rate.
The 48, please let me know in the comments. For World War II, technology isn't as good. Is a 48% hit rate quite good? Maybe he's going to tell me in a second. I don't know. It's a 50%. Technology isn't that good. But you are aiming at big targets, so maybe you're wanting to at least be at like 70%, ideally. Let me know on that, because I wouldn't know.
10,000 feet above came Fuchida and his high-level bombers. Their mission was to take out the inboard battleships inaccessible to torpedoes. They came in groups of 5. They released their salvos and scored an impressive 20% hit rate. Unfortunately for the Japanese, out of the 10 bomb hits, about 6 were low-order detonations or malfunctions.
Okay, that's good.
That is an outrageous 60% dud rate. The Japanese aviators were greatly let down by their weaponry. The damage could have been deadlier. However, the distribution was effective. California was missed, but 2 ineffective hits on Maryland were scored. Both West Virginia and the Tennessee were hit twice, and there were 2 additional collateral damage hits on the repair ship Vestal, moored outboard of the Arizona. Vestal suffered severe flooding and had to be beached afterwards.
Damn.
But all of these hits were overshadowed by the 2 hits on the USS Arizona. The first struck her aft on the quarterdeck, and another landed near her number 2 turret. It caused a magazine explosion, which exploded with a great force, and a tremendous fireball was seen.
Oh, man.
She split in half and sunk in the harbor, taking more than 1,000 sailors with her. Heavy fires burned for days.
Oh my god, that's kind of like the first indication we've got of numbers of this, and that is absolutely devastating. 1,000 sailors just on one. Oh my god, man, that's so sad to hear. Again, like I said, I had no clue about the numbers, but that's just one vessel we're talking about, one ship, and 1,000 sailors gone down with it. And you think about all the others which have sank, all the others which potentially have killed thousands of people, man, that is awful. But the US isn't someone you mess with, and I'm sure we're learning this, how they bite back, but I think everyone knows about World War II and stuff like that, but oh my god, man, that is awful.
The explosion was actually caught on tape by Dr. Hackinson, who was on the hospital ship Solace.
Oh my god, we gotta watch that again. Oh my god. Oh my god, man. Oh my. Half, what was that? Half the people killed that day came from this ship alone. So you're talking 2,000 people pretty much dying, which is tragic. In what was meant to be a 90-second attack, which was meant to sink a lot more ships. You're talking thousands of people was meant to die here. Luckily, I say luckily it didn't go as planned. So it was an 11-minute thing or 9-minute thing. And it's still devastating. But a lot more could have been lost if it was successful, if it was 90 seconds, if everything could hit. So on one respect, it's like, thankfully, a lot of complications happened and it didn't go to plan. But then on the other hand, it's like, oh my god, 2,000 people, that is absolutely awful. No clue it was coming. Man, it's hard to watch and hard to see.
Nevada was the only battleship not suffering heavy damage and capable of getting underway. She did so at 8:40 with the intention of heading out of the channel.
Okay.
Now, one of the mini-subs actually did make it into the harbor. The other 4 were unsuccessful. At 8:36, the sea tender, the USS Curtis, spotted a sub. The submarine fired at Curtis but missed. In return, the submarine was hit by a 5-inch shell. The destroyer Monaghan, which happened to be getting underway at this moment, saw the sub and approached with the intent to ram her. The sub turned and fired its last torpedo, which missed the destroyer.
Yeah, they got bad aim.
The sub was rammed and depth charge. She sunk with both crew members killed.
Oh my god. But they had really bad aim. Like, let's be truthful. They had 2 chances there. They had really bad aim, which is a good thing because potentially it saved thousands of lives. I mean, it's a shame that you never want anyone to die, so it is a shame that the 2 people died there because you never know if they could have just been carrying out orders. They may not have wanted to technically do it, but carrying out orders. But they've got terrible aim. Oh my god.
167 planes formed the attack of the second wave, of which 78 were dive bombers allocated to go against warships. Much was expected from these skilled pilots, however, their performance was disappointing. First, take a moment to see what they were up against. By now, the anti-aircraft defenses were up and ready to greet the dive bombers.
Yep.
Couple this with the fact that there was a 70 to 90% low overcast, their accuracy was destined to be off. But most importantly, these pilots were guilty of poor target selection. This was their priority list. These dive bombers with their general purpose bombs were well suited for attacking the 8 cruisers left in Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
But during the attack, about roughly 30 attacked battleships, only 17 went for cruisers, 16 attacked destroyers, and 12 attacked auxiliaries. The attack began at 8:54. The USS Nevada was caught in its escape during the second wave. The prospect of sinking the ship in the channel and thus blocking access to Pearl Harbor was a very, very improbable outcome. However, the pilots couldn't resist the opportunity, so they attacked from 2 directions. 14 to 18 valves dropped against Nevada.
Wow, man.
Nevada was hit 5 times by 9 o'clock. And at 9:10, she had to beach herself. This was the shining moment of the second wave. But it deserves to be criticized. Did they contribute to sinking a battleship? Yeah, but it was by the rarest of luck. Nevada succumbed not to Japanese bombs, but to poor material condition, critical design flaws, and a massively significant damage control mistake. And again, it still doesn't make it any wiser. The battleship should have been avoided.
Yep.
The
And
attempt-
again, it got beached, so it wasn't blocking the channel to Pearl Harbor. So, like, the enticing thing of doing that, which could cause a lot of disruption, it was pointless at the end of the day, and potentially lives lost, which is awful. But I can see what you mean. It was a mistake on their attack strategy.
to sink Nevada in the channel was a waste of ordnance that could have been better employed against targets more vulnerable to their effects.
Yep.
1 to 3 dive bombers went for California, scoring 1 hit. The USS Pennsylvania, the fleet's flagship, the only battleship in dock, was also poorly selected. 9 bombers went after her. She suffered only a single hit at 9:06. The real victims, though, were the 2 destroyers ahead of her, which received collateral damage. 2 hit the Cassin and 1 hit the Downs, heavily damaging both.
Oh my god, man, look at that.
So there could be a cultural explanation to why the Japanese pilots went for battleships. These young 20-year-old pilots were going into the most significant battle in Japan's history. No one wanted to go back home and report that they attacked a simple cruiser or a destroyer.
I
No
get
way.
what you mean.
They wanted to go for battleships, sticking true to their samurai spirit. But overall, the second wave attack was just scattered throughout Pearl Harbor, with many attacks missing their targets. A puzzling target selection was the destroyer USS Shaw, which was targeted by as many as 15 bombers. 3 bombs hit her, one of which unleashed a tremendous fireball. The reason to her being targeted was
Oh my
probably
God.
because she was in a floating dry dock and resembled a capital ship. On the west side, the Curtis, a sea tender, was inexplicably targeted. A damaged valve committed a suicide dive and crashed into her, and minutes later she was hit by a bomb. And lastly, the only hit on a top priority target was on the Raleigh. As many as 5 dive bombers went for her, still listing from that torpedo hit. She was hit once at 9:08. Also, we can add a near miss on the Honolulu, which caused minor damage.
Okay.
So only 1 hit and 1 damage near miss were achieved on the dive bomber's highest priority targets.
Which is mental to think. Like, it was, what, 8 or 10 months in the making, this whole strategy? The timing's out, and your main target's not even there, which is completely throws you off. It just shows you how much you can actually plan. I know today's technology is a bit different. In modern war, it is completely different. You've got all the technology to find out what's where, what's when. A lot more modern technology pretty much to be able to determine this stuff. But back in World War II, it can easily be knocked out, like easily. And then you've got young pilots who are trying to go for the coolest thing, I guess, the coolest thing to destroy at that time for them to go back and, I guess, brag about, which is awful when you think about it, but it was them times. That was their job to do, and they're in a war at the end of the day, which we're not going to hold anything against them, I don't think, but that was a job at the time, and it would be like you go back, yeah, I hit a destroyer, you know what I mean? But, like, completely went to pot the plan in terms of what they were actually targeting.
Against a 55% accuracy rate achieved during their training, the pilots got only 15 hits. That's a rather disappointing 19% hit rate.
Damn.
It was a poor performance of the second wave. It contributed nothing substantial to the fleet in Pearl Harbor. Also, as in the case of the armor-piercing bombs, the general-purpose bombs were deficient. But the second wave had the opportunity to be more damaging. Take, for example, the Phoenix here, a modern cruiser which was completely ignored by the second wave,
Oh,
not to
wow.
mention the first wave of torpedo bombers. She was a suitable target. But even more telling was the fact that the naval yard was basically ignored. 4 modern 10-ton cruisers were tied up here, all of them packed so closely together. One
Could've
could
been
hardly
easy
have
targets.
missed anything of value had the attack been concentrated here.
Yeah.
On top of this, these ships were in a very vulnerable position. Flammable materials were scattered throughout, hatches were open, fire main systems might have been isolated. A bomb hit here would have caused a tremendous fire and been particularly devastating.
Oh my
And
god.
there was no smoke around this area at all. The Japanese missed a chance to deliver a more effective blow.
Well, thank God for that, because that'd mean more casualties, and it's awesome to see that there wasn't more, which potentially was obvious threats. And when I say awesome, I don't mean it's not awesome at the end of the day. That was probably the wrong words. But I'm just trying to get across it. It's fantastic to see that they missed obvious threats, which could have caused more lives. We don't want more lives gone, and it's awful, the whole thing, but there's little silver linings that they missed certain things, which is good to see at least.
Only about 10 dive bombers attacked this area, and as previously mentioned, only a damaged near miss caused any damage whatsoever.
Oh, wow.
By 9:30, the attack was over. The attack left behind 2,335 people dead and another 1,178 wounded.
Awful,
Civilian
man.
casualties totaled 103, including 68 dead.
Not fair, man.
5 battleships have been sunk, but only 2 were permanent losses, the Arizona and the Oklahoma. The
Oh,
rest
wow.
were repaired and served before the war's end.
That's
The
pretty
other
cool.
3 battleships at Pearl Harbor suffered light damage.
Fair play. Like, they
However,
managed to get
this
him
attack
back up.
didn't really cripple the Pacific Fleet. Soon the Japanese would realize that it wasn't these old, obsolete battleships that posed the real danger to them. It was the carriers that they had missed. They would soon feel their vengeance half a year later. To the list we can add a target ship and a mine layer, and the repair ship Vestal, which was beached. There was heavy to moderate damage to 3 destroyers, 2 light cruisers, and a sea tender.
Yep.
And there was light damage to a light cruiser. The Japanese also achieved great success on their strikes on the airfield spread out on Oahu. Over 160 planes were destroyed. They destroyed 2 to 3 times the number of aircraft that they had expected. The Japanese lost only 29 planes, 9 in the first wave, 20 in the second wave. A testament to the Americans' quick air defense. Also,
Definitely, they
none of
were
Japan's
on it,
5
man.
major submarines made it back. Was the mission accomplished? Well, yes. All 4 battleships hit by torpedoes were out of the war for 6 months or more. And they had sunk 1 other battleship by bombs alone.
Okay.
And with that, the Kido Butai sailed back home, unscathed. World War II had just started for America, and the sneak attack left behind a temporary shocked nation, but a nation that afterwards would be resolved to finish the war with nothing less than a total victory on their side.
Definitely.
The Japanese had awoken a sleeping giant.
Yeah, they definitely shouldn't have messed with the US because they've awoken the sleeping giant, like they said, and they definitely played a vital part in the remainder of the war. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I don't know if enjoy is the word, like always with these reactions. I mean, it was so interesting to me to actually learn, and props to this video, man. Fair play. Go and check this channel out. The link will be in the description. It was so well edited, so well done. And I don't know if his channel has more videos like this on historic events or something like that. But if they do, let me know, and I'll have a check myself. And I'm definitely going to check more out because that was so well done. I hope you guys have somewhat enjoyed this video. Hope you guys have learned on a piece of significant history, because again, it brought the US into the war, and we all pretty much know what happens from there. So hit that like button, guys. Hit that subscribe button, and have a fantastic day. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.